Established Titles is a scam company. You don't actually own any land in Scotland and don't have the right to call yourself a lord. Holden, are you aware that Established Titles is a scam? Not the Established Titles ad. Scam, bruh. Do not send your money to Established Titles. It is a scam. So besides the bad skit, my skit was great. Let's get something straight right off the bat. Apparently Established Titles is a huge scam. Holden, I love your channel, but Established Titles are a scam. Hello everyone, my name is Holden Hardman. Thank you so much for joining me again for another video. Today, we're gonna talk about Established Titles. Established Titles had sponsored me in 3 videos, I think total, over the past like month or so. And if you're a regular YouTube viewer, you've probably seen one of their ads somewhere and are likely aware of the recent controversy that's come up. It's super interesting getting involved or being involved in some YouTube drama. It's been years, I've been waiting for it to happen and it's finally happened. Before we go any further, I just wanna let you know that our ties with Established Titles have been cut. We're not going to be doing any more sponsorships with them. We had made that decision several days ago once we finally got the chance to look into it. And then Established Titles actually made it a little easier for us because they sent out a mass email basically saying that any other agreed upon sponsorships past like November 28th are not going to be fulfilled because of everything that's been going on. Either way, we're not doing anything with them. My wife Jen and I were actually out of town when all of a sudden we started getting a bunch of different notifications from commenters and some of my patrons that Established Titles was a scam. So I couldn't really get into looking into what the complaints about it were until we got back home. By then a couple days had already passed and I had even more comments. So I just wanted to talk about it. This is new territory for me, and I think it's important to be transparent, you know? And scam videos are not foreign to me at all. I did one a few years back about that Fushigi ball from those old commercials that would like float and levitate, and I actually called them out for being a scam, at least at the time. By then the whole novelty of the Fushigi ball had worn off, and it was more of like a retroactive look back at it. Like for instance, in the ad, they were like, you can use it in the sunlight. But when you actually order the ball, it says, it gives you explicit instructions not to be used in any form of sunlight. In the commercials, they had like 7 to 12-year-olds playing with it. And in the actual instructions that came with it, it's like, this is not for children. This is not a children's toy. Please take great care to ensure that this product is kept out of reach of children.
It's awesome.
So stuff like that, false promises, things that are misleading, and a lot of people, from what I've read, are putting Established Titles in that group. The video that I think brought the most attention to this was this video by Scott Schaefer, Established Titles Scam, YouTube's Biggest Con. I care about the responsibility I have as a creator that is essentially producing sponsorship videos on behalf of these companies and presenting it to my audience. Am I complicit in that? Am I a victim because I was lied to? Is it just a misunderstanding? Could have something as simple as just had there been more clarity, this whole thing could have been avoided? Is it a combination of all 3? So I watched the video by Scott Schaefer, and some of the points he makes are not all that credible, but some of them are. After I was researching into it, my conclusion was, yeah, I think that we were all, at the very least, misled. At the very worst, straight up lied to. So for me, and I can't speak to everybody's definition of what they define a scam as, but to me, is it misleading, false advertising, and are you getting what you're paying for? And in the case of Established Titles, it does seem to be misleading, and you don't seem to get what you're paying for. And it's so frustrating. It is incredibly frustrating as a content creator that, again, I can't speak for other content creators, but I give a rip about my integrity and what I present to the viewers. I did want to look at a couple of the points that he makes. Some of them are just not good points at all. I think when he was like looking into it more and realizing that there was some straight up like, you are not getting this that you are being told that you're getting, and then kind of went into this sort of tangent, kind of broader to just kind of make them look worse. But I'm more interested on the actual like, what is the deception part? So the first thing is the fake Lord and Lady title. So to me, the whole concept of following this old Scottish custom that a landowner can be named a Lord or Lady screams novelty gift. That's the way I understood it as a creator. That's the way I presented it to my audience. I mean, I dressed up in a kilt, I faked a Scottish accent, and I learned the insult, the Scotsman insult from Samurai Jack.
Gomro, Jesse, off-looking stoner, nyaff plucky shan, milk drinking, soy-faced shilpit.
When it comes to your Scottish real estate needs, I don't think that I'm the person you think about. So when you're a content creator and you get something like a sponsorship, they usually give you like a packet of things that they're wanting you to say, things you can't say. It just gives you the things that they're wanting to get across to the audience. And Established Titles was the same way. They gave the content creators a list of things you cannot say. Among them was that we could not say that you are legally viewed as a lord or lady. I read a few comments after the fact, though, that some content creators were saying that. And if they said that, that is a lie. With pretty much every sponsorship that I've done, you have to submit your video for review by established titles or by whatever company. They review it and then approve it for being posted, just to make sure you're not being like, hey, they actually suck, you know, and they're paying for you to say that about them. So if that's true, it was a fault of not only the content creator, but established titles in that case would have approved that ad to run. The novelty of it was that it's based on a technicality. You own a little tiny piece of land, so that really means you're a lord or lady. Regardless, it's a Scottish tradition, not American or Canadian or Australian or whatever it is that you're from. So even if it actually were a legal change in Scotland, you still really wouldn't be able to do anything about it unless you lived in Scotland. So in the ads that I did, they were saying that you could put your name on things like plane tickets or credit cards, but no like government issued driver's license or passports, falling into the novelty that if the cashier person checks your credit card and it says Lord so-and-so, it just feeds into the novelty. Well, I own a piece of land in Scotland. I read a few comments, though, saying that some content creators were saying that you could change it on your ID. This could have been a really fun gag if it wasn't for the misleading marketing. A lot of defense is that the title is just for fun and not meant to be official. Yet almost every sponsorship I've seen mentions something about them officially being a lord that you can put it on your ID. That is a lie. You cannot do that. And not necessarily because of the rules, but just that your driver's license doesn't even allow for prefixes anyways. So the whole lord or lady thing, it just seemed obvious that that was novelty. But I think in retrospect, there should have been a more directness in saying, hey, there is no legally binding contract that you are a lord or lady, just to help avoid the confusion there. But the second issue, and this is really the biggest one to me and the most blatant, like I was told as a content creator that this is what the viewer is getting, but they are not actually getting it. Because while I thought the technicality over lord or lady seemed obvious, but I suppose there could have been some more clarity there, this seemed to be much more blatant. It was my understanding as the content creator in discussions with established titles, the viewer, if they were to purchase this, would own that piece of land. It was listed in the creator brief that all the land was owned by this private estate, and they would sell off these small patches of land to whoever wanted to buy them. And really, this probably could have been avoided if there was more transparency on behalf of the company, because the actual good part and one of the selling points for me was the third point, working with the tree planting organizations. So in the initial video by Scott Schaefer, he kind of goes over how there's no real paper trail to prove the donations to these tree planting organizations. And that's fine, but the critique is pretty meaningless without any actual data. Like, that's the type of critique I'd expect to see on like mainstream news. Like, we don't know how much they're giving. They could be giving nothing at all and we'd be none the wiser. Well, I mean, you're right, but what if we find out that they're giving 25% of all the income that they receive over to those companies? Would that change your opinion of them? What if they're giving 50%? Is it still a scam? It's a bad argument because without the data, you're essentially setting yourself up for a moving of the goalpost argument. You might be right, they may be hardly giving anything, but using our ignorance of what they give as evidence that they're doing something shady is in and of itself a little shady. What he should have done, and would have probably been more concrete, is he should have reached out to those companies, One Tree Planted and Trees for the Future, and asked them what the percentage was that they get and see what they said. It would have strengthened his argument with the actual numbers, or might have been a situation where they're like, oh yeah, they're actually giving quite a bit over to these organizations. The fourth point that he makes is that Established Titles is owned by like this web of other companies, some of which have shady business practices. I didn't know that, so that's news to me. The most damning thing for me was not Established Titles themselves, but that of their link to Deal Dash and Kamikoto Knives and other shady corporations with the same two people, that Wolfgram guy and another person being founder, CEO, board members, types in all of them. They are making cheap knives in Hong Kong and flat out lying, telling you these are special made Japanese knives. I don't know anything about the knives situation. I never was sponsored by them. Deal Dash and other things like that I'm familiar with, this sort of pay to bid system. Those have been around for forever, and I thought that it was pretty upfront about how that worked. I thought that you had to buy the bids like beforehand and knew that if you paid 50 cents or $1 to place a bid to raise the price by a penny, that you did that on the upfront. I think in Scott's video, he talked about how what they don't tell you is that you have to pay for those bids. I don't know if Deal Dash works that way, that if you win, you'd have to pay the bids on the back end, in which case I'd agree, that's pretty shady. But I think that with, honestly, the whole, you're not getting the land that you're paying for, he's already sold, that it's not legitimate. And I think this type of thing just makes them look worse, because honestly, every company is like this. Like, the first thing I think about is Disney, and I know that you support something that Disney owns. They own Touchstone, ABC, most of ESPN, as well as dozens of other smaller companies you've probably never heard of, some of which have had some pretty significant troubles of their own. Walt Disney himself had to hide some of his investments in these shell companies in order to purchase the land for Disney World. And I'm not saying that it should be overlooked. I'm just saying the precedent that Established Titles is doing this shady thing and owning these other shady companies is a weird precedent to set, because all these other companies that we normally turn a blind eye to do the same thing, but it gets pointed out, I guess, more for them. One of the last points is that there's no official office being located in Scotland. In the creative brief, they do give a Scottish address, which I know that Scott Schaefer points out that it's just like, I guess, a general like location over there. So that was news to me. I don't like, that's very misleading. Overall, though, that complaint would be irrelevant if you were getting what you were paying for, which in this case would be land in Scotland. Like Apple runs its main business in California, but all your iPhones are made in China. Like, would it be less ethical to just buy your phone directly from China, or does it make you feel better to have your phone shipped from China to your local T-Mobile store and then you purchase it that way? Can I own a house in Canada and then sell it online to somebody? Would that be wrong? I'd say no, not as long as you were getting what I was selling, which was a house in Canada. To me, the biggest scam element of the whole thing was not actually getting the land ownership. The other stuff, the technicality of the Lord or Lady thing could have been clarified. Undisclosed charity givings could look better, but without the actual data, it's a moot point either for or against them. Though I personally would still really like to know the answer. Having some shady other businesses that own Established Titles certainly doesn't look good either, but it does open up a can of worms for all of us if that's the hill we want to die on. And not being physically located in Scotland is irrelevant. Were you actually getting land in Scotland? On my decree, that I got. On my decree, it says that the land was paid for and that this is a receipt of owning that plot of land. And I'm even given a dedicated plot number to show that it's mine. That's really the crutch of the whole thing, and in my opinion, the biggest scam element of Established Titles. And what sucks is I still think that the premise of it is fun. It's a fun idea. It's a silly novelty gift that you can give to your friends or family, and in the process, you're helping out the environment by planting trees. Like I said earlier, my wife and I have decided to go ahead and cut ties with Established Titles, but I did want to look into it more in depth just for myself. It's super easy to get swept up into the sort of internet mob mentality. There was enough actual concern for us to want to seek out partners elsewhere. That being said, there's absolute responsibility on behalf of creators to know what we're allowing to be sponsored on the channel and how we influence others, and I take that seriously. And I do think my regular viewers know that as well. It's very frustrating because I don't like being deceived, and even more so, I don't like using the position I'm in to be a conduit to deceive others. So if you are one of my regular viewers and you bought something from Established Titles, let me know if there's anything I can do to kind of write that for you. I can see about maybe getting you on the YouTube membership, or maybe a couple months on a certain tier on Patreon or something like that. Or if you want, I haven't been paid for the last Established Titles ad that I did. I think we did a total of 3. I'd be totally fine in just donating that money straight to charity. I don't care. I hate the situation that they've put me in. Full transparency, it's like a few $100. I saw some creators were getting like thousands of dollars. Your boy ain't getting those Benjis for the sponsorship. So I think, honestly, regardless, I'll just go ahead and donate that money. My preferred charity is St. Jude. I've done a few different videos on the channel, and they've been my preferred charity. But given the circumstance, we could do a tree planting organization. It seems like a really imbalanced like choice, like children with cancer or planting some trees that you could do yourself by just going to Lowe's real quick. But I'll let you all decide. If there's any other suggestions, something that I could like feasibly, realistically do, please let me know. I'm totally open to that. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. I'd love to check them out. I'm sure you've already posted some stuff down there anyways. Some of the complaints were certainly valid. Some of them were just sort of hypening up the already bad situation. And I tried to give my reasonings about why I felt one way or the other. Again, we're not working with them anymore. Ties are cut. If you'd like to check out my Fushigi video where I talked about them being a scam, I'll leave a link in the description for that. That was a few years back. It was a pretty fun video to do, and I hope that you'd enjoy it. For now, that is it. I appreciate you guys watching. I'll catch you in the next video. Take care.